In the spirit of reconciliation, I acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island peoples today. Welcome to Totally Lit, the podcast celebrating reading, writing and creating literature. I'm your host, Kai Garvey. Thank you for listening. Mercedes Mercier, welcome to Totally Lit.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Very excited to hear about your book, Couples Retreat. I've just been doing a bit of Googling and I saw that it's was inspired by interesting true crime. I'm all across that. I'm a big true crime listener, so we can dive into that as we chat about your book. Would you like to tell me about Couples Retreat?
Sure. So the Couples Retreat is set on the beautiful Kangaroo Island just off the coast of South Australia. And it is told from the point of view of two protagonists. So first we have Emily Quinn. She's a rookie police officer. She's moving to Kangaroo Island on her first posting after the academy, and she is running away from something in her past on the mainland. Then the other point of view we have is Ash, and her husband have recently come into money through their activewear company and have been invited on a very luxurious holiday with her husband's old uni friends. And they are all old money. They're grown up with money. They're very wealthy. They're very privileged. They're the golden boys that have had everything sort of handed to them their whole lives. And so they go off for a weekend of partying and debauchery at this stunning beachfront mansion in Kangaroo Island. And after a couple of nights of partying and fun and terrible behaviour, without giving too much away, they wake up and there's a murder scene. And around the same time, a storm is rolling into Kangaroo Island, which cuts all the ferries to and from the mainland off. So the group is trapped on the island with the killer. So Emily.
So the killer is still there.
Yeah. So
You've already sucked me in.
I really wanted to explore a locked room mystery. I've always loved those. I've always loved the idea of an island as a setting because you can just cut it off from everyone else and really raise that tension and stakes. So yeah, Emily Quinn is thrust into this massive case as a fledgling officer, and in the meantime her past starts to catch up to her, and her past and present are being thrust together.
Lots of tension and conflict there. It sounds amazing.
Now, always going to keep the tension high.
You have a justice background, which you've been able to reach back to write this. Did you want to tell us a bit about your experience and how you've embedded that in your writing?
Yeah, sure. I have had over 10 years experience in the criminal justice system. So it's given me a really great insight into policing, courts, prisons, offending behaviour, offending profiles, sentencing. I guess basically the whole gamut of the criminal justice system, which means that I could sort of drip feed that into a lot of aspects of the book, including Quinn's background, her training, the police station on the island, which was completely fictional, by the way. The police station is not based on the actual police station on Kangaroo Island. Thought I would just...
No, police officers' reputations were haunted there.
Exactly. And in my previous two books, which were White Noise and Black Lies, I set those in the actual prison system, which meant that with it using a criminal psychologist inside the prison, which meant that I got to dive into that, in my previous books as well. So it's been a very a very useful background to have, especially for writing crime.
I know that we can't talk too much about who done it,
Mm.
um, who did it. I'll have to correct myself there. In terms of your experience with criminals, how much exposure did you ever come across anyone that was like the killer in your book? Because, like, I understand that justice there's many different type of criminals that fall into the justice system.
Absolutely. I've always been hugely fascinated by offending behavior and what makes a person offend, how their background, how their upbringing, how anything sort of might come into it from, a head injury as a child, the a whole range of different factors to what could have led to it. So yeah, I really like to explore that in my characters, and I've been very careful because of my background and of the conflict of interest that could arise with my background, to make sure that if there is parts of an offender or an offending profile that I have come across in my professional life, that I don't use that in an identifiable way. And if I do use it, it's only a really, really small snippet of that behavior. And then I do, what all authors do as magpies of interesting things, and I go and mash it with something else from another person I know, or something I've read, or something I've experienced. So the murderer is an amalgamation of many different traits, many different characteristics, many different experiences that I've had.
Just in some of the info I was reading from our publisher, the you did take inspiration from the Idaho University murders. How much of that is in your story in terms of, I guess what I'm going to ask is, did you need to ask permission or reach out to anyone when you were embedding some of that in the story?
It was really only the very, very initial story that I heard, and heard the details before, when it was still in the process of being solved. It's sort of hard to go into the case, in too much detail without. I'm just trying to be careful how I go about it with spoilers for my own book, but essentially it was just the initial idea of that awful, tragic situation of a few people being in a house together, or they were in a dorm, being in a house together, and someone coming and killing, a number of
Mm,
people within
but
that,
not everyone.
but not everyone. And then the question of why were some spared? Was it purely functional? Was it purely because some people were on a different floor to the others, and the person didn't get up to that floor? Or was there people that, this specific people that this person was targeting? Did other people get in the way and were sort of, felt, lack of a, this is an awful term, but were collateral damage? That was sort of just the very broad sort of idea that sparked the idea of the setting for my book. Without revealing anything, the motivations of the killer were very, very different. How it unfolded was different. Situation was very, very different.
So that was my next question, is that because with that case, the perpetrator has now, they know who that is and that has been solved. Did that perpetrator inspire anything in your story?
No, no.
And I was reluctant to ask that earlier because I was like, that might just give away the whole end.
Yeah. Well, thankfully, no, that case, no, did not inspire the motivations of the killer. It was purely the yeah, as I explained, purely the physical setting of the story and the physical sort of mysteries around it, I guess.
And what about the Queen, Agatha Christie? Did she inspire anything from her locked room
I think Agatha
mysteries?
Christie always is always inspiring. I think just reading her my whole life, I feel like everything, she's written is sort of seeped into my brain by osmosis. I would never dare to say that anything I've written is, anywhere near similar to her, but always she is an inspiration. Yeah.
I absolutely adore Agatha Christie, and as a writer and as a human being, I just love the way she had a divorce, a little bit of a weird blip where she disappeared for a bit and then reappeared, and then she suddenly is adventuring off with an archaeologist in Egypt, and I'm like, "Yes, Queen."
She has she
Talking
has
about rising
a
above.
life.
Mm.
She yes.
So you got the opportunity to visit Kangaroo Island. W Was that researching and immersing yourself in the setting?
Yes, I actually have spent quite a bit of time on Kangaroo Island growing up because it's in our background in our backyard in South Australia. It's quite an easy and beautiful location to get to, so we spent a few summer holidays over there. I've been over there a few times since I was young, and I wrote the first draft basically from memory. So I last time before last year that I had been over there was just after COVID. So I spent a bit of time over there just after that. So I wrote the first draft basically sort of from memory of that trip and all my previous trips. But when I was rewriting, and my rewrites are quite heavy. They're a lot of work. I thought, no, I actually really want to get over there and be doing these rewrites while I'm immersed in the environment and actually being surrounded by it when I'm writing the setting, because I often setting is the last thing that I write. I find that I start with character. I love writing dialogue. So my books are always quite character plot and dialogue heavy, and they're very setting lean. And so by the time I get into that rewriting and that, second, third, fourth, etc. draft, that is when I need to be layering in the setting and really making that come alive. So I
I'm
think
very similar in that I have written things and asked people to read it, and they're like, "But you haven't really mentioned your environment, like there's no trees or grass or wind or what's the temperature like?" And, "Oh, okay, I really need to be, like, adding those layers in, but that will bump up my word count as well." Like,
yeah.
that oh, I didn't think about that. But I guess also, like, connecting with all your senses while you're writing so that you are thinking about smell, taste, temperature, what does everything feel like? And I think that just gives so much more texture to the reader as well to have that, I guess, real immersive experience of being there with you, the author, while you're
Mm,
conveying the story. Um,
absolutely.
you wrote the book while bringing twins into the world.
I did.
How was that experience like?
Well, it was both easier and harder than I was expecting. At the beginning, it was definitely a lot easier than I was thinking. I found the newborn phase wonderful. They were great sleepers, great eaters, totally relaxed babies. hardly ever cried, so I could always just, open up my laptop and basically write whenever inspiration struck. But then they hit about 4 months, and that was when they started to turn into babies and, have the sleep regression and all that kind of fun stuff. So suddenly all of my magical writing and editing time was gone, and I really had a reality check on what it was to be an author and a mother of young children at the same time. And I just sort of said to myself that I was going to utilize every spare moment that I could to write and not feel guilty about it. Now, I did utilize every spare minute that I could to write, but I certainly felt deeply guilty about it a lot of the time.
Mum
So
guilt.
always,
Worst.
always. So I was basically every time I would get them down for a nap, I was, running back to the kitchen, I was opening up the laptop, I was editing.
They tell you to sleep when your babies sleep, so you were writing when your babies slept.
Yes, and I wasn't, washing clothes or cleaning the kitchen or preparing dinner or, all of these other stuff that I could have also been spending my time doing, which is where the guilt came in. But it was also quite a positive experience because I was doing something that I loved
Mm.
at the same time. So it was I was always feeling very uh, still quite had moments of the old me in that first year of postpartum haze and hormones. So I was very grateful that I was still able to write, and I still felt the itch to write. In fact, I think I would have really struggled if I hadn't been able to.
Like, I was not writing when my children were born, so I'm not quite sure how I would have managed it, to be honest.
Mm.
But I do find I now, because I work full time and I'm doing podcasts and trying to write, and I always find myself much more motivated and pushing myself to make things work because I have a goal and a vision for what I want to do. And I imagine that once, if I had been trying to write while I had children, that I would be trying to do that. But yeah, I'm wondering maybe if I would have just, I need to lie down right
Yeah. Oh, there's definitely moments of that, but I've been very surprised by the amount of words that I can now push out in a small snatch of time. I used to have to have, a 2-hour block set aside. I used to have to have my cup of tea, silence, you know, the door shut, all of these things. And even then, I would spend, 45 minutes procrastinating, scrolling on social media and doing whatever else I could do to put off actually writing the words. And then after that, I'd be like, oh, I've done 500 words, this is not working. I'm so disappointed. Now I'll just, all right, the kids are down for an hour. I'll just desperately try and get some words in, and oh wow, I've done 1,500 words. It's crazy.
I'm imagining that meme of Kermit the Frog typing away.
Truly,
Quick, smash it out.
truly, it's always never used to understand how mothers could be taking the kids to soccer practice or something, and they're quickly pulling out their laptop in the half an hour when they're on the soccer field and, writing a chapter. I was always like, that's amazing. I have no idea how, you can switch your brain over that quickly and just get straight into it. But now I understand it's just bred from pure necessity.
Where were you? Had you finished your first draft before you'd given birth, or were you still in the process of writing?
I had finished my first draft. Actually, I think I'd finished. The way I work is I do a really dirty, messy first draft. It's basically just getting the words on the page, telling myself the story, but it's just it's really messy. And so then I rewrite, and I probably do about 5 or 6 rounds of full edits before I feel that it's even ready for anyone to look at. So, um, by that stage, I had sent it off to a couple of author friends. They'd looked at it, given me some feedback. I had rewritten it again, probably 4 or 5 times until I was happy with these rewrites. Then I sent it off to my agent, and I was in the process of completing her edits when the girls came along, and I think I probably had about 2 weeks off after they were born, and purely off my own back, not off any, pressure or deadline from my agent. I just felt that I was ready to get back into it and finish those edits. So I did that, and luckily I got all of those edits done when they were still in that really sleepy, easy newborn phase. And then it went to my publisher, and they gave me a huge structural edit. So it was basically rewriting half the book. And that landed in my inbox around the exact same time that the girls started to, wake up and have the sleep regressions and be going through difficult patches. So yes, that part was definitely hard. And that's when I was rewriting during every nap, and when the girls went to bed until midnight, and obviously then still being woken up during the night by them. And weekends my husband would take them out for a long walk, and I would get an hour or so of solid time just to sit and work on it. Snatched moments writing in the cracks.
Can I ask, because you'd written the draft before you'd had your children, when you went back to rewrite, did any of your perspective change or any of your characters' worldviews change as your world was changing as well?
I included a little bit more around one of the characters tossing up the idea of whether or not they wanted children, and had a bit of a discussion around that, which hadn't been included before. That was sort of a dual purpose, I guess, in that when I did that really big rewrite, a whole number of characters, the wealthy, entitled characters that Ash and her husband go on holiday with, I rewrote them in a way to make them quite unlikable,
Mhm.
which was great fun, by the way. I had so much fun at writing those characters, and which surprised me, and getting into their heads and getting their awful behavior on the page. But obviously when you write an unlikable character, as in life, there's, very, very few people who are only one thing. And so I didn't want these characters to be one-dimensional in the fact that they were just these rich, privileged, entitled people who didn't have any, flaws or tough things to work through, or, any weaknesses or softer parts of their personality. So I did work to ensure that there was 2 sides to all the characters, and they were all sort of multifaceted, and whether or not people would be able to see something of themselves in all of the characters, hopefully they'd be able to see something in at least one of them, or something that a friend has experienced or been through.
So you are evidence that having twins and writing a book at the same time is survivable
Yes,
and that
yes.
you can produce a quality piece of work which is publishable as well during motherhood.
Karen Main, I believe, wrote her second novel while juggling twins as her third and fourth babies, and Kate Solly had twins as her fifth and sixth babies. So
Holy cow.
wonderful, wonderful women ahead of me had produced best-selling works, that were very, very inspiring and supportive and helpful to me during during the writing.
Now, I have a few questions for you just so that my listeners can get to know you a bit better.
Mm.
Um, and also just some advice for would-be crime writers as well. What would do you have one tip you would share with an aspiring crime writer at the start of their career?
Mm. At the start, what I found really helpful, what I will preface this by saying a tip is that not you've got to find what works for you, and you've got to take the tips from authors that suit you and that work for you. Because when I was writing pre-kids, I would be asked about my writing routine, and I would say I wake up at 5 a.m. and I write for 2 hours before work, and then I come home, and in the evenings I do any admin sort of style of admin sort of work around the author life. Now that is not possible for me anymore. Now that I've had kids, and my lifestyle has completely changed. So, that advice and that sort of routine that I had back then suited me at that point, but obviously doesn't suit me now. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that, you know, I might have a certain tip that's worked for me, but it's not, not everyone needs to feel like they need to take it on board. But something that has really helped me is having a village of people around you who are also at the same stage as you mostly, but it's also great if you can get some published authors around you as well to help inspire you and show you that it is possible. Because I found writing can be quite a lonely experience because you are spending most of the time alone with your laptop. Um, and it's hard if you're not an aspiring writer, if you're not writing, it's really hard for people in your life to understand what it's like. And so I think you can really only get that understanding and true collaborative support from other people that are in the same situation as you.
Mentoring is so valuable, even when it's not an established, locked in, you're my mentor kind of arrangement. Those peers around you that support you and cheer you on as you're going through your publishing journey, they're so, yeah, just invaluable to your career. I've had some wonderful people just say, I believe in you. And that just is so helpful.
And
And even
sometimes that's all it takes to keep you going. Like, you might have had 10 rejections in the last couple of months, as I often did, and having that one person say, "I believe in you," makes you pick yourself up again and thinks, "Yes, okay, I can continue. I can give this another go. I can keep trying."
and publishing is not like the same as our day jobs as well. So learning the tips and tricks and, oh, I've received this email. I'm unsure how to respond to it. What would you do? Because because we're not really prepared for the business of publishing when we're writing our first book. And then there's a whole other side, marketing and connecting with podcasters and bloggers and all that sort of stuff as well is like a foreign to a lot of us on how to do that. Yeah, so it is great for those people that have come ahead of us to be sharing their experiences with us.
Absolutely. And just, yes, like you said, just so many tips and tricks and protocols and little things that you're just not aware of until you've stepped over that threshold of being a published author. So if you do have people in your corner that can sort of, help guide you and help you understand, situations and that kind of thing, yeah, it truly is invaluable. It also helps because it is such, I mean, not for everyone, but for, I guess, probably the majority, it is such a long, tough journey to get published. And even when you're published, the hard journey doesn't, it doesn't finish there. It's still, staying published is also very difficult. And so you do need these people around you that that can support you and that can understand and that can keep you on track.
It is amazing when you find your tribe as well, like, because I think also sometimes writers, they don't quite fit in, like, because people are like, "Why are you doing that? That's, like, a lot of homework. Why are you, sitting there writing 80,000 words when you don't have to?" And
Mhm.
I think unless you've got the writing bug, like, there's other people watching you going, why do that?" Or "Don't set yourself up for failure," or "Don't get yourself too invested in that."
It's a big
And it's
sacrifice as well. It's like, there's a lot of time if you've got a partner, if you've got a family, or if you've got friends, it's a lot of time that you're spending away from those other parts of your life. And if it's hard to explain when it feels like you're not getting anywhere with it, why you keep going and why you keep going back to that laptop and spending, all Friday night there because, you've that's the time you've put aside that week. Yeah, but your writing buddies get that. They
yes.
get why. They get why you want to spend your Friday nights working on a manuscript instead of, you know, out for dinner or the movies or whatever.
I find it interesting too that while you're writing a book and when you say, "Oh, I want to be a writer," people are like, "Oh no, don't do that." And then, but once you are published, people will say, "Oh, hi, this is Kai. She's an author." And they're very excited and they like to tell people they know an author, or that they, I don't know, they seem to look at you in a different way than before, because it's not very often that somebody would say, "Hi, this is Kai. She works in federal government." It's really interesting how people look at writing as something that's a pipe dream, but they do like it once you've got there. So,
Absolutely. I think, yeah, I do think it is one of those careers that is such a slim chance of, if you want to be traditionally published, it is such a slim chance of getting that opportunity that I think a lot of people just don't ever think it's gonna happen
mm.
for you, and then when it does, it's like, "Wow, it was such a long shot, but you made it happen," and yeah, makes it feel worth all the times when people have tried to turn you away from doing it.
And you've made it happen 3 times. Doing
Yes.
well. A
I've
hat
been
trick.
very, very lucky, very, very grateful for the opportunities I've been given.
Now, can you tell me one surprising thing about yourself that your readers and other writers may not know about you?
Oh, mm, what is interesting about me? I have shared this with some people, but I am a black belt in karate, which people might not necessarily think by looking at me, but I did many, many, many years of karate twice a week, many, many exams, and to work my way up to black belt, and then I promptly quit. So that was my goal. I achieved it, and I was done. Yeah.
Can you do the thing where you chop the wood with your hand?
I doubt I would be able to. It was legitimately in some exams,
Oh
but
my goodness.
I would wager that I don't think I could do that anymore. I don't think there's a lot of things,
So you
um,
have tried to do that in the past?
in the past, but not for a very long time. It also used to be quite physically demanding, so you'd be doing 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and then getting up and running around the room and getting back down, 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups. I doubt I could even do 10 sit-ups these days, so There's a lot of things that have fallen by the wayside since I achieved that goal.
You're only one woman.
That's so true. That's so true.
Would you enroll your girls into karate when they're older?
Absolutely. If they were interested and they enjoyed it, I absolutely. I think it's a great all-round sport. It's physically demanding and it's mentally demanding, and it teaches you to use your body and your mind in sync in a way that I think few other things do. So absolutely, if they're keen, then I would love to take them.
You can never predict what your children will be into. My children are certainly not carbon copies of me. My
No,
younger son especially loves country music, which I'm definitely a rock chick, and I'm like, I don't know if we are really related. Like, how is that possible? And he
ready.
doesn't like Star Wars, and we're huge nerds in our family. And
I'm
I'm not really coping with that.
How can you not like Star Wars?
But he definitely has my freckles and coloring. So yeah, there is no he is my child. He just happens to have different interests to me. But I'm a big believer of just encouraging like everybody just to be themselves. So I'm like, okay,
Absolutely. I
we'll
couldn't
listen
agree
to
more.
Johnny Cash in the car.
I love Johnny Cash, so I love country music. I'm a bit of a country music tragic, so I'm on your son's side. The beauty of having kids, isn't it? And seeing the people that they become, and just letting
Yeah.
letting letting that unfurl in front of you.
Well, it is sort of just like I guess, supporting and guiding and just allowing them to be themselves and, yeah, just not pushing your own, like, tastes and agenda on them. I do get into trouble because I often will go, "Oh, is that what you're wearing today? Do you wanna go back and rethink that?" Uh, and every now and then they will turn that back on me if I'm going to an event. They're like, "Oh, mum, is that really what you wanna wear?" "Oh, thank
Yeah,
you."
oh, okay, yes, it's different when I hear it back at
Yep.
myself.
And the other one they do is if I'm getting a bit stressed, I'll be like, "Breathe, mum, just breathe. You're
I
turning
love
that
that.
one back on me as well."
That is a nice one to have turned back on you. I've had friends who've had, their kids accidentally, like, knock something over, and they've, said to their kid, "It's alright, it's an accident, it's not the end of the world, we'll just clean it up and we'll move on." And then, months or years later, the parent makes this big accident that they didn't mean to, and they're kicking themselves, and their kid comes up and saying, "It's alright, it was an accident, it's not a big deal, like, we
Mm.
can move on." And it's those moments where they've just been like, "Oh my gosh, this is," you know
It is nice when you see your kids reflect, like, something that you've taught them. Like, my guys will open a door for someone. If they go into a shop and someone is coming out, they'll stand back and let them
Beautiful.
through, and I'm like, "Oh, I've done something right. Excellent."
Yeah. Raise good humans.
Yeah. So what would young Mercedes think about your writing career if you went
Um,
right back to
young
little
Mercedes
you?
always wanted to be an author, and I had this little diary where I would carry it around, and I've still got it, and I would write stories that went nowhere, that weren't very interesting. They were always about a girl who had very long hair and a pet bunny rabbit. So I've
Cute.
still got quite long hair, but I don't have a bunny rabbit, but I do have a big dog who I adore. And it's funny, we were talking earlier about people considering writing a pipe dream. In most of my adolescence and teen years, I was too embarrassed to say that, I wanted to
Mm.
be a writer, I wanted to be an author, because I just thought, "Well, it's never gonna happen, so what's the point of setting myself up to fail in front of everyone?" And then I years down the track when I got my publishing contract, I posted it on social media and I had a girl from high school say, "Oh, I remember you always said that you wanted to be an author." And I was like, wow, all I remember is not wanting to share that with people because I was scared that I was setting myself up for failure, but I must have actually shared it. It's funny how you remember things. I must have told people that's what I wanted to do. So that was a lovely sort of moment of sort of full circle
It
moment.
is wonderful when you realize you've done it, like, because it is set up as an impossible dream,
Mm.
and so you know there's gonna be adversity and difficulty, and that the percentage of people who actually get published is quite small. And I find I sometimes diminish what I've achieved because I'll always say, "Oh, I've just got a picture book," or
No, just about it.
yeah, and there's times where I'm like, "Oh, remember, like, there are people who dream of just having a picture book," and I have to count myself very lucky. But I think for me, like, I'm 3 years into my publishing career, and I haven't actually really realized it's real yet. I'm like, "Okay, let's" yeah, you need to take some time to enjoy it and go, "Hey, I actually did it." Um,
So true. Even the other week, I went to Japan just for a short holiday, and when I was flying in, I was filling out the immigration card, and on it, it said, "What's your occupation?" And it took me a long time to think, "Okay, I can actually write author on there,
mhm.
and I don't feel like I'm pretending. I don't feel like I'm an imposter or they're gonna laugh at me and say, 'No, you're not.'" Yeah. So, yeah, I know what you mean, like, you can be 3 years, 3 books, into it, and it's still hard to believe.
Now, your latest release is coming out on the 14th of April. What have you got planned to launch? Are you doing a launch event?
I am. I'm doing a launch event at my local bookstore, which is Shakespeare's Books.
That
Mm.
sounds like a great shop.
Oh, it's incredible. It's 5 minutes up the road. It is owned by Becky and Mike Lucas. Mike Lucas is also a Penguin author. Just the loveliest people. They have a beautiful old dog called Holly who's always just
Oh,
padding around the bookstore or asleep on the floor. It's just magic. So we'll be having wine and cheese and a nice launch there, and then I go off on tour with the wonderful Georgia Harper.
love
And we'll
Georgia.
be yeah, she's amazing. One of the funniest people I know, so I'm not sure how I'm gonna keep up with her humor-wise and story-wise on tour, but I'm gonna give it my best shot. And we've got an event in Sydney, we've got some events in South Australia and in Queensland. All of those events will be up on my website, which is mercedesmercier.com. Also on my Instagram, which is Mercedes Mercier Writes, which is where I'm most active on social media. I do have a Facebook account, but I'm not as active or nowhere near as good as updating updating that account.
I am going to book in if you're going to be in Brisbane. I'll come along to that event. That'll be exciting. Oh, and one last thing I was just going to touch on your website, you've got some writing and mentoring services. You want to share a little bit about that?
Yes, I actually haven't really shared much about that. I haven't it was something that I started up while I was on maternity leave in the early days thinking I would have all the time in the world. So I haven't sort of officially launched that yet, but that's a service that I will be providing to aspiring authors. And I'm basically calling it's mentoring, but also similar to, coaching. I basically acting as a cheerleader, advice, guiding, writers through all sort of stages from, plot, motivation, how to sit down and write, looking at the work they've done, advice on people to speak to if they've, got specific questions, information on how the industry works. Yeah, basically anything from, how to send out a manuscript, how to submit, um, yeah, anything the sort of the broad spectrum of life as an author.
I did like that term of being a writer cheerleader. Because sometimes you just need somebody to go, "You can do it."
You do, and I often wish that I'd had somebody that had done it sort of specifically for me. I had a great group. I still do have a great group of, my tribe and my writing group, but, it's nice having someone that's completely in your corner, and that's just focused on you, I guess.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. I'm really looking forward to getting stuck into your book because it sounds like it's totally my jam. And I appreciate you sharing your writing experiences with myself and my listeners. So thank you so much for joining me, Mercedes.
Thank you so much, Kai. I had an amazing time. Thank you.
Totally Lit is an independent podcast. You can help support us to continue to chat with wonderful Australian creatives by leaving a review on iTunes or sharing our socials with your friends. You can also make a contribution at www.buymeacoffee.com/Totally Lit. This will also help with equipment and podcasting platform fees. I love to interact with our listeners, so feel free to say hello either by email or social media at totallylitpodcast@gmail.com, or you can find me on Facebook, Insta, LinkedIn and Twitter, and now Blue Sky. I've also created a group on Facebook called the Totally Lit Writing Community. It's a space to continue the conversation and share your writing successes, events, launches and latest projects. Jump into the group and say hello. Thank you for listening to Totally Lit, and don't forget to go out into the world to read, write, create, ignite.